All right, there it is. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Today, we're going to be throwing out some navigational strategies for the 20-year-olds, some of those Gen Zs that are out here trying to figure it out. I mean, I've come to understand in my time when I was in the 20s, I excuse me, come to understand that you know don't really have those mentors, those motivators to inspire you and dedicate you to do things that you should be doing because you don't know that you need to do those things. So with the way things have changed over the last couple decades. Oh, hold on a second, guys. It just told me to plug the plug the laptop back in. I'm sitting over here thinking the laptop should be already be plugged in. It's not plugged in. That's because I was charging something else right before the show. Um, before I continue to go into this today's topic, I just thought that it would be interesting to um, do a little touch up. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Join a membership if you can. Uh, for those of you that are on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter, we've got this nice little link here going into the comments section. You guys approve the mic, approve the camera, brings you to the show in real time. For the rest of you guys that are coming to see us from TikTok, we have this opportunity right here for you guys to jump into the show live. If you'd like to, just hit that invite that's popping up right now, and then you guys will be able to dive in whenever you want to. Shout outs, comments, appropriate comments, because we still got to deal with those community guidelines. And then let's see. Yeah, I'm going to keep the intro short today. Real quick, before I dive really far into today's topic, I actually wanted to double back on a couple things because I've been responding to comments throughout the day for all of the fans on most of the platforms, and I thought it was interesting because our man cave topic actually got a little bit of rave today, and I thought that was interesting to see. There were a lot of people that saw what we had to say and had responded to it, and then there were a lot of people who were actually ironically in an uproar, and I thought that was interesting to see because there was actually, uniformly speaking, both men and women that got offended by the analyzation of the design of a man cave when you're dealing with a relationship that is not supportive of uniformity towards the man. And there's a lot of analyzations of why a man cave would exist. And those people who looked at the short didn't actually show up to the full length podcast and did not go to the YouTube platform and look at the whole show and see where that particular short came from. But just soundbiting it, there were a lot of people who thought that the man cave in and of itself was like the treats for the man, and it's like modding your car kind of situation. And I just had to really double back on that and be like, yeah, in a way you could have a hobby location in your house or on your property. And yeah, you can have like a smoking room if you smoke and the rest of the people in your household don't smoke. You can have like a smoking room. That's not a man cave. You understand? And the people who are trying to defend why they have a man cave, probably men that have relationships that are the happy wife, happy life model, where the self-preservation of the man comes from only making sure that the wife is pleased, and the man is only pleased that he doesn't have to endure chaos. If you're one of those men, if the shoe fits, wears it. But truth be told, in a healthy relationship, outside of the life choices that directly negatively impacts the other person, health and something like to that effect, you should be able to do everything in a quote unquote man cave that you could do in the living room. And that's one of the things that the short actually pointed out, and people started combating. Not everybody. So I think it was like 2 or 3 people, but the rest of the people were like, "Yeah, fair enough. That it is what it is. Let them cook." And the truth is that when some of the people came back and tried to make a response on the topic, they didn't actually provide a defense. Somebody said, "Oh, well, what if I wanted to smoke and drink and play Xbox and stuff like it's everything that you can really do in your living room." The only thing that you probably would do different is if you're a smoker and you're in a relationship with somebody that's not a smoker, you might choose to smoke outside, or you might have a specific room in the house that you actually smoke in because you don't want to negatively impact your partner with your smoking habit. However, that is not defined as a man cave. A man cave has all of just the man stuff in it, and the man cave is isolated to men only. No women are supposed to be in the man cave. The rules around the man cave is a lot like the boys' fort or playhouse back in the day when we were kids. No girls allowed. It is exclusive to just the boys, just like the man cave is exclusive to just the man. The having to design something like that in your house does have its negative implications. You can specifically design your house however you want to design your entire house, but when everything that belongs to you is isolated into one room, and then 90% of the rest of the house is her design, that is not the signs of a healthy construction of a man cave. If you want to have your own personal space, your own personal space is not the same as having a man cave, because you can have your own personal space in the bedroom while your wife is downstairs doing whatever she wants to do. You want some alone time. They had another man say, "Oh, well, in response to my man cave topic, they wanted to come back and say, oh, so, it's wrong for me to be in my office because I want my alone time." Your home office is not a man cave. Your a man cave is just for the man. That's not personal space. But isolation in your relationship, trying to get away from the family, they say, oh, well, they try to justify it. And I love the way they tried to justify it, but by trying to justify it, they ratified the fact that you're not able to freely do what you want to do in the rest of the house. And that's one of the things that I just touched on when I responded to a lot of their comments, was that, look, that outside of explicit adult behavior, everything that you can do in a quote unquote man cave, you can do in your living room. Everything. So outside of, like I said, explicit adult behavior, there is no other reason why you would have a room identified as exclusive to this particular type of activity. Because and then you got to look at the modern Gen Zs and the men that are between 20 and 40 years old right now. We're playing video games, which is what you could do with your kids. Because that was another comment, is that, oh, you can't just have your stuff lying around the house and your Xbox and you can't play your video games and stuff like that with your kids around. And no, that's not true. Kids play video games. You grew up on video games. So you in your 30s and 40s are doing the exact same thing you were doing when you were 8, 9, and 10 years old. If you have an 8, 9, or 10 years old child in your house, what you were doing when you were 8, 9, and 10 playing Resident Evil and Perfect Dark and 007 is the same thing that you would be doing with your child now, playing Call of Duty and Ghost Recon and WWE Raw vs. SmackDown. So there's no difference in what you're doing. The difference is that when you have to find peace in your house by locking a door and not letting anyone else in, you're dealing with a social issue, because you should be able to have that same peace on your sectional, stretched out across the couch, or sitting there playing your Xbox with your girlfriend or your wife, bringing you a beer, rolling you a blunt, whatever the case may be, and doing what you're doing in the middle of your living room, if your entire house was a sanctuary. But if your entire house is dedicated to her and just one room of the house is dedicated to you, that's when I said you start having a problem. Now, if your life and her life is intertwined throughout the house, and you decide that, hey, I want to watch some OnlyFans in this one room of the house. Hey, do you? But you're locking the door because you're looking at adult content that you don't want your children to look at. That's not the same as your high school trophies, your football jersey, everything that you value is in one room, and then the rest of the house represents your wife. That's two different scenarios. So I just thought that was funny. I wanted to touch base with that real quick before I started on today's topic, because we're talking about strategies and tips and tricks and stuff that we can give to the Gen Zs and the 20-year-olds. And I just wanted to touch base on that before I started going into the topic. So while I'm on this topic, I just wanted to talk to those Gen Zs and those 20-year-olds, because we did that show last month about how the Gen Zs are trying to, quote unquote, live life over work. And I'm going to tell you, y'all know firsthand that trying to get out there and make a dollar is getting even harder these days. And because it's becoming so hard, that we have the hustle culture that I've talked about a couple times on the show already. And we see, how you doing, Red Boy? Good to see you on here. We see with that hustle culture, we see the people doing whatever it takes to get a buck and sacrificing themselves in the forefront. Now, you in your 20s, being able to set up a 20-year plan is something that would benefit you now and in the future. Because depending on how much effort you're putting into your 20-year plan depends on what kind of lifestyle you're going to have at 40 years old. Those of us that were in our teens and early 20s who just went to work to pay the bills and made enough money to cover the bills and maybe had a little bit of money to have a little bit of fun, where you say work hard, play hard, or work hard, play harder. The fact is that if you take all of your free time and put it towards entertainment instead of putting your free times towards your financial success, you're not going to find your financial success as quickly. And you will come to find that life passes you by. And then when you're in your 30s and 40s and sometimes even your 50s, you're looking at how time has passed dramatically and your life has not improved at all. And in some situations, especially after you've gone through a few bad relationships, your life may have gotten worse. So I say that one of the things that you should start thinking about in your 20s is better ways to improve your 20-year plan. So when I was giving you guys investment strategies last month, and I was telling you guys, hey, there are some low risk investment strategies that you guys can utilize that could aid you in your ability to take a little bit of money out of your play money. So this isn't taking your bill money. This is money that you would throw away to the nightclub, threw away taking girls out, threw away buying gifts on girls, convincing them to take you out or go out with them. You know what I'm saying? And take that money and put it in places where you would be able to better improve your position in the future. Now, why is it important for you to set up a 20-year plan and start focusing on your later today? Well, instead of you living life, people say YOLO, you only live once. Well, instead of you living your life today for today, not knowing what tomorrow will bring you, you could be working today for tomorrow so that you know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if you focus on your tomorrow today and you start setting up those building blocks, you start establishing lines of credit, you start taking those steps and they got tips and tricks all over the internet, all over YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, where entrepreneurs and business financiers are all giving out these tips and tricks and hints, and they're all over the place. They're scattered all over the place. And this and that is going to be collecting them over the months. And we're going to be throwing them into some of these podcasts. And you're going to pretty much have everything that is scattered all over the place, localized in one location. And it's not going to change the fact that if you don't apply this information, you're not going to benefit from it. It is common knowledge, or not so much common knowledge. It is publicly accessible knowledge, because common knowledge is not common anymore. And the reason why common knowledge is not common anymore is because we don't talk, we don't communicate. We have to sell knowledge to get money, hustle game, which is why it's so toxic, because we got to find a way to make money. Knowledge used to be free. You used to be able to share knowledge and pass down information through the lineage. The only thing that would be exclusive is that the knowledge that I would get from my forefathers, and outside of showing it to my best friend, is probably nobody else I would share it with unless I had an apprentice that I was teaching this information to, because I did not have a legacy to teach the information to. That's when you start seeing those apprenticeship style scenarios with people with a lot of potential. You teach them the family business, and then they inherit the family business. One of the reasons why the poor stays poor is because we grew up in a poor environment. We had no inspiration. We had no mentors. We had no knowledge of how to do and be better. We only have what we pay attention to. And right now, the current generation is paying attention to the music videos and rappers and everything like that, and social media trends. And we're not actually paying attention to what we need to do to get better and do better. And we have nobody standing around us telling us, hey, you should probably get your shit together. And I know that I've got friends on my ticket that I got to tell them a time or two to get their shit together. And they don't actually listen sometimes. And then when the shit hits the fan, I got to tell them, hey, I told you so. And I try my best not to just hit them with an I told you so on a regular basis. But more often than not, a situation comes about. And after it's resolved itself, I remind them, remember when I was talking about this last month or last week or 3 months ago? And there's been a situation where some of the times that I've told my friend, don't do this or don't do that, they actually came back to me and he was like, what, I see what you've been trying to tell me all these years. And the truth of the matter is that even though he recognized that I was right about what I was trying to show him, he didn't try to do any better. So that put us in a position where, he is head in the dirt trying to grind on an hourly, and now he's working 2-3 jobs instead of trying to build up his own business. And as I build up a business around him, I tell him, hey, you could have done more. Now, he said that his goal was to be a millionaire by 2025. 2025 is 3 months away. I couldn't guarantee him a millionaire status by 2025, but I mean, I could guarantee him that 50 to 100,000 by the end of 2025, he would be putting into his pocket, in addition to the money that he's already making on his 9-to-5. And the following year after that, he'd be looking at 100 to 200, and the following year after that, he probably would be crossing over a $1 million status. But nothing that is supposed to be 6, 7, 8, 9-figure salaries and stuff that you do overnight. And that's one of the things that I would like to tell those Gen Zs and the 2020s and you guys that are trying to thrive in your 20s. You guys got to understand that grinding is grinding. So when y'all say, well, I want to live life, I want to have a good time, and most young people do, you really want to put your head in the dirt and you want to just grind out on building a business, not just working for somebody else, because either you're going to have it in your later days or you're not. You wasn't born with an inheritance. You wasn't born with a trust. You wasn't born with a bank account that's going to release a bunch of funds to you after a certain age where your life will change if you just live long enough for that money to hit. That's not what's going to happen to you. And because that's not what's going to happen to you, you have to make a difference in your future. One of the reasons why capitalism is claimed to be so great is because even though it's very rare, you can actually change social economic statuses by hitting it big, doing one thing, focusing on one thing, redirecting your attention to one thing. And as you boost yourself up in that one thing, you'll come to find out, holy shit, I'm really good at this and I'm making a lot of money at it. But that doesn't happen all the time. And just like I was telling you yesterday, is that especially when your mindset is hustling to get that next dollar, where you're doing all the work by yourself instead of you trying to build a platform where you're creating a position by doing this work on a regular basis. You outline the criteria to fulfill that position. Then you hire somebody, you teach them that, and now they're doing that. And then you go over here and you create this position over here. You're doing this for a while. So you start off doing it yourself. But you have a routine that you build. And this is what I was saying when I told you guys about building your own routines. You have a routine that you built. If you paid a personal assistant to take over you doing your routine, your personal assistant would be doing the things that you would be doing on a routinely basis. Likewise, if you're building your own business, the quantity of effort that you're putting into a certain routine, once that routine becomes a standard, you're able to pay somebody else to handle that routine for you. If you're paying somebody else to advertise for your business, if you're paying somebody else to do the paperwork for your business, if you're paying somebody else to handle customer service, intake, or shipping out your product, or whatever it is that you're doing, if there are certain areas that is very time consuming, just be on a podcast in and of itself. If I hired somebody to respond to all of my fans, just to make sure that all of my fans got responded to on a regular basis, if there are that many people talking to me, where it is a full-time job for somebody to just sit there and just answer everybody's question and respond to everybody's statement, it's worth paying somebody to do it if that's going to improve my platform. Likewise, if it is a full-time job for somebody to advertise my podcast somewhere where I can get more viewership onto my podcast, that's a full-time job. That's the marketing position. A marketing position doesn't have to be a whole floor of people doing this one thing for you. A marketing, it could be one or two people, one that's uploading the videos and one that's sending the links out to all of the different platforms that you have. You could have one person promoting all of the different platforms that you have. That way the people are coming to your podcast from multiple different locations. But the fact is that if you're not building yourself up a level of success, you're not setting yourself up for a future with less stress, 30, 40 years will pass by. You'll be 50, 60 years old, and you'll be sitting there wondering where the time went. You're still struggling. And the only difference is that your health gets worse. Your options become less, and it becomes more difficult to bounce back from a downfall, from catastrophic failure, from things that negatively impact the full totality of your life. Divorcing at 50 and 60 years old is not as easy as it is to divorce at 25. Having a girlfriend break up with you and you have to move away and start over is not as easy at 55, 60 years old as it is at 20, 25 years old. When you back in the day, you used to be able to break up with a girl and go from one girl to the next girl and not lose nothing besides some of the gifts you may have gave. These days, if you hanging around a girl too long and y'all stop talking to one another, she still gets half of your shit. You got to be careful. So one of the honest strategies that I would give to the young men that is striving in their 20s to be successful is I would tell you guys that you guys have to find yourself a 20-year plan. Find yourself a 20-year plan. And the reason why you have to find yourself a 20-year plan is because success isn't made overnight. If you find yourself a 20-year plan, and it's going to be a 20-year investment plan where you're investing in yourself, you're investing in starting up some kind of business. So even if you are working for somebody else right now, some of the extra money that you're getting off of working for somebody else, instead of you spending that on having a good time and kicking a shiznit with your homies and going out with girls and having a good time with girls, you could be taking that extra money and you could be putting it towards getting your LLC, getting your C corporation set up, getting your tax stamps done, getting your business registered in your local city and state, piece by piece, setting up whatever it is that you want to try to do. Then you can start taking a little bit aside here and there and start putting money out for your marketing, putting money out for look at that. John is talking about some best side business is real estate rentals. And look, I was just telling y'all, look, last week and the week before that and the week before that, when I was telling y'all about the brokers, a job position that doesn't even really require a college degree, where you can get into that and actually get paid to broker deals where somebody's trying to close and somebody's got the money and all they need is a middleman to make sure that all the paperwork's in order. You get paid for that as much as $400,000 a year for stuff like that. So there's a lot of things in real estate that you can really do that can get you your own boss. And yes, John is right. The real estate rentals is the kind of business that will give you residual income on a regular basis. you got to figure out how to get yourself in there, because whether or not you have the right assets, whether or not you have the right credit, whether or not you don't have assets or credit, but you have a good payment history, there's all different ways that you can get in there and get started. You can get in there, start with one property and work your way up. You can start with one property your first year and then try to pick up 2 or 3 properties in your second year, 4 or 5 properties in your third year. 20 years in, you probably got 2,000 properties. The fact is that, yeah, real estate is one of the best businesses to not just build an isolated business, but it's also the kind of thing that you can build off of, because you have the real estate business, you get yourself your real estate certifications, your brokerage licenses and everything to that effect. And then you can actually hire other people and train them to do certain portions of real estate underneath your business name and get a percentage of their deals under your business license. And then you don't have to do as much work. You can have 15, 20, 30 people working up under you, buying and selling properties under your licenses, under your business's name, and you would be getting a percentage of their deals, and you ain't got to do shit. But it first requires you to start buying and selling at first. Or actually, when he's talking about rentals, he's talking about buying and holding. He ain't even talking about selling. He's talking about buying and holding. You buy it, now you hold it. And right now it's a seller's market, but it's transitioning into a buyer's market. And you have the choice between buying them and fixing them, or buying them ready to move in. Either way it goes, you still got a property that has an after repair value or a current market value. And either way that goes, you still have the ability to take a 50 to 65% mortgage out on the property and utilize the capital that you mortgaged off of the property to go and buy yourself another property. But setting yourself a 20-year plan gives you the ability to take your time right now, do your research, go talk to some people who's been doing it, go to places and visit people that are accomplishing these tasks, and try to figure out how do you get your foot in the door. You got to get yourself set up with a business license. You got to get yourself set up with a business entity, an LLC, a tax identification number for a business, so that you can start building this business separate from your own personal social security number, separate from your own personal income, separate from your own personal assets, so that you can start building this particular empire up. And if you start doing this in your 20s, there's going to be some trial and error. There's going to be a learning curve. But making that particular type of learning curve between 20 and 25, you would still be extremely young and extremely capable of bouncing back from any failures and transitioning into success over the longevity of time, and still being able to, in your 40s and 50s and 60s, not be pressed for time. One of the hardest things that I had experienced when I was brokering deals, when I first started doing it, was the pressure of trying to make money right now. So the quality of the deal was lower in my mindset because I was trying so hard to close something so that I could get paid for it. But the truth of the matter is that if I would have had the ability to have a stable income coming in, then I could pick and choose which deals that I get involved in, where I'm guaranteed to get a commission off of a good deal that's going to put me less effort with a lot more money into my pocket. What did I tell you guys yesterday? I said, make sure that your efforts are maximized. Optimize your efforts so that you have a greater outcome out of less effort. That does not mean that you're going to half-ass and pussyfoot around. What that means is that you're going to put in a certain quantity of effort in the right way, where you're not working yourself to death. You're not really killing yourself psychologically or physically to make a dollar. You're instead maximizing your efforts to make sure that you have a higher outcome, where the ends outweigh the means by magnitudes. And that's when you start having a situation where the effort that you put into it, or the financial expense that you put into it, is the cost of doing business. When you're turning profits somewhere and you have to write off on taxes your expenses, the stuff that you invested in that didn't go the way you wanted it to go, the difference between the money that you invested in business and the money that you made out of business is the profit margin. And when I've told you guys before, C corporations are like 35%. C corporations, so LLCs are like 35%, but C corporations are like 20%. And if you're spending 40% in your business and you itemize this correctly, you're not paying taxes on the other 60%. You got a C corporation, and anything over the 20% of taxes that is owed if you're writing off taxes, you're not paying taxes. So the other 80% is profit that you can reinvest in your business. You can expand on your business. You can improve the quality of the current quantity of business that you have, because you don't actually have to expand and branch outward, where you got more stuff to do in more places and spread yourself thin. You can actually expand yourself upward in a scenario where if you've got a 1 to 5 man operation, that you increase the quantity of work that the 1 to 5 men can do. And then when you have more work, increasing the workload, when you have more work than those 5 men can do, then you can get 10 men to come in here and do it. That's when you start expanding outward. But if you've got enough work for 1 to 5 people and not much more than 5 people, you don't need more than 5 people. But if you're turning a profit off of that, if you're turning a reasonable profit off of that, you want to be able to make sure that you're maximizing your efforts to the scenario where your 1 to 5 people is not breaking your bank, and your 1 to 5 people is definitely making some kind of a profit off of it, so that they will keep coming back, because nobody wants to work for somebody for nothing. And you guys in your 20s, you guys are sitting over here like, I just heard, right? What was it? Last week or week before last, somebody I know was making $12 or $13 an hour. My jaw dropped when I heard that. I was like, wait, they're making how much? And I was shocked in disappointment. I'm like, man, when I was working for somebody else, I was making like 20, 25 last year and the year before that. And you're telling me that somebody I know was making like 12 and 13, and they're excited right now that they're making 15, and minimum wage is supposed to be fundamentally expected to be 15 across the board by this time next year as the minimum wage expectation. And they're excited that they got 15. Look, Gen Zs, if they don't replace y'all with machines, by the time y'all make $20, $25 an hour, you're going to have to work really, really hard, physical, manual labor, to make that 20, 25. So it makes way more sense, guys. It makes way more sense for you guys to put yourselves in a position to try to start up your own kind of business. Try to start up anything. So if it's not real estate, I recommend real estate. I actually have real estate businesses amongst other things. I recommend and anybody who's invested in real estate would recommend real estate. But I would recommend it because you actually can dump a bunch of debt into a real estate property that gives you they call it a tax blanket, because if you owe more than you made, you don't pay taxes. But if you're pocketing all of this money off of the debt that you have invested into this particular property, that's money that's going into your pocket. You can take care of all of your financials, and you can expand, and you don't have to worry about sitting on any kind of tax obligation. When you start migrating yourself outside of a W-2 scenario, like the only time you're really paying into Uncle Sam is when you've made enough money and not had enough debt. Like, you put yourself in a position where you really sit there out of the day trying to figure out, what all do I got to spend my money on so that I don't have to pay taxes. And I feel like that's a less stressful environment to be in, to sit here and think about, what do I have to do to not have to pay taxes with all the money I made? Which means, you have that money to spend. And what do you do besides buy another property? I was just sitting over here thinking to myself, well, man, if I was bringing in enough money to buy 4 properties a year, I'd probably buy those 4 properties a year, mortgage those 4 properties a year, and then buy 2 more properties with the money that I mortgaged off the other 4 properties, and have 6 to 8 properties up there where each one of them is making a certain quantity of money, where half the money that the tenant is paying me for the rent goes towards the mortgage, the other half goes to me. I might even take it and do like a 60-40, where half of the money goes to the mortgage, 10%, so that's 60, 10% goes towards in case I need to do any repairs for the property, and then the other 40% goes to me. But if I've got 8 properties where 40% of the money goes to me, I got a shit ton of money coming to me that's untaxed, because my overhead, 60%. when your overhead is more than 20 to 40% and it's legally itemized and written off, so you're going to have to put your CPA on payroll, which is an employee, which is a tax write-off. Specialty, talk to a local tax agent, talk to a tax lawyer, because the tax lawyer is going to represent you in court when you get audited. Specialty, these are tax write-offs. So paying for these things makes sense to have them to protect you, but paying for these things makes sense because if you're paying for it, you get a tax deduction for it. And there's a difference between a tax deduction and a tax credit, because a tax credit is capitalizable, which means that you can get that back as a refund, the way you get a student refund from college. But a deduction means that you don't have to pay as much. They reduce how much you have to pay until zero. When you get a bunch of tax deductions, if your tax deductions are in a negative value or below zero, that does not mean that you get a refund. It just means you don't pay taxes. It just means that you don't have to give anything else. So if you had a $65,000 tax obligation to the U.S. government, but you had a $70,000 quantity of tax deductions recognized by the U.S. government, it just means that you don't pay the $65,000. It doesn't mean that you get back $5,000. When you have tax credits, that's when you start getting money back. And tax credits is a credit towards taxation, which means that if it's not used or compensated for in some way, shape, or form, it comes back to you, which is why you get that refund. Now, I know some tax professionals can probably explain that a little bit more professional, because I'm not a tax agent. I just understand that I haven't paid taxes. I file, unlike Trump. Up until I realized that I can run my own businesses, I file on a yearly basis. I either get a full refund or I don't have to pay taxes, depending on whether or not I'm a W-2 that year or a 1099 that year. But learning the things that I've learned over the past 20 years, I start my 20-year plan, and in the next 20 years, I will be sitting in a better position than what I am right now if I stick to my 20-year plan. I tell you, at 20, if you find yourself a 20-year plan like real estate, you could build yourself up, because if you could find your way into one extra property a year, think about the fact that if you're renting right now and you get ownership of a property and you turn that property into a payday, you don't have to buy your first property and live on it. You could be renting from somebody, buy your first property, and have somebody else paying on that property. You can utilize the collateral on that property to go and get you another property. You could have 4 or 5 properties that come in while you're still renting. You could have 4 or 5 properties come in to your ownership, and then you could take those 5 properties and turn that into the ability to buy yourself your own house, where the tenants from the other 5 properties are paying for the mortgage for the house that you're living in. Well, you're not even paying for the house that you're living in. You don't have to buy your first house and then go into real estate. You could go into real estate and use your success from real estate to buy your first home. You can go into real estate, and after you've bought your first home, you could utilize your own house. I wouldn't recommend that unless you have guaranteed tenants. But if you collateralized your house, and that's what some people do, real estate is a high risk market. So you'll see that I'll be talking to you guys coming soon about tax liens and the pitfalls of tax liens and what you can do to work around those pitfalls, because tax liens are another form of real estate where you guys can make a shit ton of money off of tax liens. You can make a shit ton more money off of tax deeds. Even if the homeowner forecloses on the house, in order for them to zero out the bill, they've got to pay you back what you're entitled to. So your money's going to come back to you at some point. It's just not going to be right away. And that's one of the reasons why you have to set yourself up for a 20-year plan, because you have to be able to put your money into an investment and leave it there. You leave it there until it does its thing. And then 20 years later, when you go to get that money back, that's when you start having that massive profit. When you're doing the treasury bonds, the non-taxed government or tax deferred government investments that you do, those bonds that you do with the U.S. government, that money sits there for 20 years and then you get it back and nothing happened. Like, you got a shit ton of money, but you got to put it there and leave it there, forget about it. Or not necessarily forget about it, but put it there, leave it there, and never mess with it again. See what I'm saying? And even when you're dealing with those 10 and 20-year long-term investment strategies with stocks and bonds and mutualities, and you think about the 20-year plan with building a business, whether it's real estate, computer technology, for those of you that are gamers, like the some of those guys that are playing Madden for money, whatever your plan is, you got to have a plan of success where you have short-term goals. Your short-term goals, you can realize short-term goals where by a certain period of time, I'm going to generate a certain quantity of income. You recognize the quantity of income that you're able to bring in, and then you determine how much of it's going to be reinvested into the business so that you can maximize more returns off of that same investment. One of the things that you recognize is that after a certain period, and you also have to understand, I've told you guys this before on the podcast and made a few shorts about it. As a matter of fact, it takes 2 years to stabilize. So whatever your 20-year plan is, the first 3 years is just building it up to stability. And then after that first 3 years, whether or not you're making a profit off of it, you need to be, and the difference between making a profit off of it where you are making more money than you're spending, or making a profit off of it where you're making enough money to pay the overhead instead of you paying for it yourself, that's the difference. Is it bringing in some money? Even if it's less money than what you need to spend on it, is it bringing in some money? Yes or no? Is it bringing in enough money to cover how much it costs to keep it going? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, keep heading in an upward position. If the answer is no, you got to tweak this thing in a certain way to try to figure out a way to get more money out of it so that you're not spending so much money on it. When you zero out where you're bringing in, if your overhead is a couple $1,000s a month and you're bringing in a couple $1,000s a month to cover your overhead, you broke even. You're not turning a profit yet as far as paying off your overhead, and now you can go take some money and take care of your household. But at 20 years old, you could take the snail's pace, you could take the slow grind, and that's when, instead of you slow grinding the hustle game transactionally, just, I'm gonna get this money this time, and then I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do to get money next time I need money. You are actually setting up a situation where you're building on your success. You're building on your efforts. You're making changes. You're looking at market trends are going to change. Market trends are going to change back. So you might have got into it and it looked like everything was good when you got into it, and then things start getting tough. But you got to understand, every 4 to 8 years, the market fucking flips all over again. Real estate was peaking. They're about to change those interest rates back down to like close to 3%, 3.25 to 3.75%. It was like 6.5% in real estate before. So where it's about to be by the end of 2025 is going to be half of what it was last year, half of what it was at the beginning of this year, which means that with and you think that, a 3% dip is not that much. I got people in Hong Kong telling me right now that the dip in the US market in interest rates is going to benefit them with their market, because the cost of materials is going to depreciate. The cost of buying and selling is going to depreciate. So when I'm talking to people in Hong Kong and they're telling me about their markets over there, and you got to think about when you go to places like Japan, you can buy places. You got to talk to the local government. You got to get their rules on development, because they got way different rules than what we got. We can buy a house, we can buy the land, we can buy the street that the thing is on, and then we can redevelop the whole fucking thing. Out there, there are certain things that you can own, and there's certain things that you can't own. In Japan, there are no limitations as to whether or not you have to be a citizen of the country in order to buy property, especially if you're going over there with the LLC or a C corporation. But certain land that is exclusive to the government, like even the Japanese citizens can't buy that land. And if you can't develop the property that's attached to that, then that property is a dead property. Now, can you buy a property, mow it down, and turn it into something else, depending on the building code? But some people look at that as a waste of time and money and effort. When you're looking at a financial loss in the face, one of the things that some of the most successful real estate people are capable of doing is when you're making a shit ton of money and you don't have feasible ways to write off everything, you can always either deliberately or accidentally put a little bit of your capital into something that's going to be a loss, because that offsets your overhead. It offsets the amount of profits that you make. You're able to dip into something that's a little less profitable in order to keep from having to pay taxes. You got people who donate money to charity on a regular basis already because they make so much money. But if they also invested in other deals that was less profitable, you would be scoring on gaining an extra property. You'll be scoring on gaining extra real estate that would generate revenue over time and still offset your overhead. So your portfolio, you might have some A-class properties, you might have some B-class properties, but you might have some C and D class properties. You might have some that people will say, man, that was a stupid buy. But I mean, it offset your overhead. You made that decision, you picked it up, you're able to utilize that property. That property is making money for you. So when you're going over to Japan got some properties that they abandoned where you might pay $800 for the whole fucking thing, taxes on the property and all, and walk away with a whole property that, yeah, it might cost you a couple $100,000 to redevelop that property. And then once you redevelop that property, you still got to put somebody in it. But the U.S. government says that you can make $120,000 a year in Japan doing the business, where if it's not taxable if you make $120,000 or less. So let's say that you go over there and you are picking up a bunch of properties that are capable of turning over a reasonable quantity of revenue, but you're picking up some at-risk properties or disastrous properties, and you're modifying those as well. Well, you know, the money that you're putting into those money pit properties that nobody else wanted to fuck with is going to offset the properties that are making you a shit ton of money. You're still able to take care of your staff. You're still able to take care of your overhead. You're still able to generate revenue and generate wealth. And the fact that you're buying and holding all of these properties, as opposed to just buying them and selling them and doing a short term, by you buying and holding all of these properties, you have assets and you have equity and you have liquidatable assets where you can actually utilize or leverage these assets to get you more money to go do something else. So you can buy 2 or 3 great properties and buy one shitty property and offset the cost. and this is one of those strategies where you're evading taxes, but you're doing it in a legal way though, because the tax laws dictate, you know, if this and this lines up, you don't got to give them anything else. Fact is, in your 20s, you guys got to find other ways. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm just going to go to college and then I'm going to be something. Most of us have gone to college, and most of us do not do what our degree was in college. Some of us have 2 or 3 degrees. But that does not change the fact that as smart as you claim to be with all of the degrees that you have, a degree is a piece of paper. And at this time in the United States, a bachelor's degree will get you a manager position at a Wendy's. A bachelor's degree will get you a night shift position at a Burger King or something. So you can't say, oh, well, I'm going to go to college, and then when I come out of college, I'm guaranteed to get that degree. You can get a job on Wall Street with an accounting degree. You can get it without an accounting degree. You just have to have good credit and know how to count money on a grand scale. If you know how to trade, if you know how to watch the market, you could be a high school dropout if you have enough money to invest in it, or if you can convince somebody else to invest in you, and then you invest your money in them, and then you take their investment capital and turn over enough profit to make them back the money that they fronted you. You pay them back and even pay them back with interest and keep the difference, and you keep investing. You don't have to be a college graduate to have your own 20-year plan to be successful. But if you make a 20-year plan at 20 years old, by the time you're 40 to 45, even with pitfalls, even with delays, even with the constant changes in market, if you're paying attention to what's going on, you'll make yourself successful. But you got to have a goal, and you got to stick to it, and you got to focus on it. You got to be able to apply yourself to your own success. And like I told you before, you have to have the type of network that you can lean on for the ability to improve yourself. The network that you're leaning on, the network that you're leveraging, you're not leveraging them for money. You're not leveraging them for stuff. You could be leveraging them for connections. You could be leveraging them for knowledge. But the fact of the matter is that no self-made man made it by himself. Self-made men motivated themselves to keep going with all of the opportunities that they were provided by the people around them, watching them attempting to succeed. And while they were attempting to succeed, these people took advantage, the full advantage of every opportunity that came their way. No matter how little of an opportunity of success was there, they took it and they made it the best that they could make it. And then they turned a profit off of it, where other people would have gave up on it and walked away from it because it was not maximizable in a short period of time. It took the long haul. The long haul is what you need to have the most success. That's why, as your boy just finished telling us, buying and selling, like you go into real estate, you could buy and sell for the short win. But if you buy a property, you flip it, you buy it, you build it up, you flip it, you sell it, you pay taxes on the sale, it's done. That's it. If you made $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 off of that sale, that's it. It's done. That's it. There's nothing else to it. Now you got to go find another property to buy. You got to do it all over again. If it took you 3 months to find the last one, yeah, you made 50 grand. That 50 grand is going to cover you for the rest of the year. But now you're going to spend the next 3 months trying to find another one. But if you're getting a residual income from that one, you find another one. Now you're getting a residual income from 2. You find another one. You're getting a residual income from 3. And finding properties to keep is easier than getting rid of a property that you already got. It's easier to and when we start talking in the upcoming shows, when I'm going to be telling you guys about the buyer's markets that actually exist right now in the seller's market as it transitions from a seller's market to a buyer's market, when I start talking to you guys about that, we will be talking about the fact that you could go there and get a good deal on a property right now in a market where it's in your favor to buy because ain't nobody buying shit. But once you pick that property up and you keep it, guess what? Now you can utilize that property in a year to 2 years as collateral. When the property value is going up more than what you paid for it, you can borrow back the amount of money that you paid for. You picked the property up for 200 grand. Now it's worth 400 grand. You can leverage the property for 50% of its value and get 200 grand. You just got back all the money you paid for the property. Use that, go buy you another property. You got a tenant on that property paying the mortgage. It doesn't matter. Look, y'all, they got 30-year fixed mortgages right now. They've got balloon payments. They also got 40-year adjusted loans out there right now. They're opening up a whole nother thing for real estate right now. Those of y'all that are veterans, they got special rates for veterans. They got special rates and 40 to 45-year accessibilities on veterans loans. And so if you know somebody that's a veteran, that's a good way to go to dive in there and get to invest in capital and invest in real estate and then redirect the property to the business and build it up in a way where if a tenant is paying it doesn't matter if they're paying for the rest of their life on your mortgage. You can have you a 20, 30, 40-year loan on your property. The money that you're making off of that property is going towards the loan. It's written off on the taxes. So if you've got 20, 30, 50, 70 properties that are giving you $1,000, $2,000, $4,000 a month per property, you're crossing over a few $100,000 in profits. That is offset by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of recorded debt against the capital. So you're still not paying taxes on it. I have heard some real estate agents say that they were doing this for 5 or 10 years, 7 years before they had to even start making taxes on it. And they probably plateaued on their expansion. And that's why they started having to pay taxes on it when they were going into real estate. Because at first, if you're doubling down, every time you turn a profit, you're doubling down. And you build a trend where you're buying by the end of the year and you're recouping your assets between Q1 and Q2, and you're buying between Q3 and Q4, where you've officially closed before the end of the fiscal year, you're able to say, I spent money as opposed to I made money. And if you're borrowing against a stone, your money's making money for you. Your assets are making capital for you. Your capital is giving you gains that you can utilize to increase the assets that you're getting. And all of this rotates itself around to the fact where you're living the life of Raleigh off of money moving around without you having to do too much of nothing. But you can also do this in stocks. You can also do this in bonds. You can also do this in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is its own market. Not too many people get into Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is its own market. Last year in March, in 2023, March of 2023, Bitcoin was at like 20 grand. Bitcoin's at 72 grand right now. And when the market drops again, if the market drops back down to 40 grand, there's a 30 grand domino effect. And it doesn't matter if you walk in there with 2 grand or 200 grand. If you start buying in when the market is 30 grand below and the market goes 30 grand up, you just made 30 grand on your investment. If it's going up 300 or 3,000%, you just made 300 or 3,000% of whatever you invested into that market. You can cash out on it and then reinvest on it when the market tanks, and then you're putting it back in 300 to 3,000% back into the market where your money is flipping itself. And all you got to do is just watch the market trends. You do not have to be a rocket scientist for this. You understand? All you have to do is just have your 20-year plan. You have to have the type of 20-year plan where you're not dealing, and your 20-year plan is not just business, but you got to have the type of 20-year plan where you're not just dealing with day-to-day operations. You're not dealing with, putting away just a little bit of money in case the shit hit the fan, and then I can take this and go save somebody else's bullshit. You're putting money away so that you can invest it into this and invest it into that and take your profits off of that or your interest off of that and invest it into this. You're basically taking the extra money that you get from your investment and using your investments profits to pay for other investments so that your day-to-day money is still coming in and taking care of your overhead. And I keep calling it an overhead because your expenses, whatever they be, personal expenses, business expenses, is an overhead. When you become a walking business, your entire life is part of the business's overhead. Company cell phone, company internet, company laptop, company webcam, company car, company house. So everything that you touch and everything that you do as a representative of the company, written off as a company expense. When you start traveling for your company to expand, your vacations are now business trips. Your business trips are tax deductible. So if your company's making enough money for you to travel, then you can travel. And that means that you can travel to the United States or you can travel the world. If you are expanding your company to have a foreign domestic in another country and you have a real estate business in another country, real estate is not just beneficial in the United States. It's not. So this is why I keep telling you guys, the word to the wise for you 20-year-olds, instead of y'all just twiddling your thumbs, playing Donkey Kong and Mario Kart and Call of Duty and Fight Night, and you're playing LeBron James on the Los Angeles Lakers, or you decide to put him back on the Cavaliers, and you're winning your career, your fantasy career on NBA 2K. That guy's a multimillionaire in real life. You're playing a multimillionaire's character on a TV. I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, it is more beneficial for you to put that video game controller down and start working on your 20-year plan. Because if you work on your 20-year plan, you're able to build yourself not only financial stability, financial freedom, financial success, you're also able to build yourself the type of empire that you can leave to your legacy. So for those of you that have not gotten kids yet, once you have them, you've got areas of success. You had one guy tell me that he bought a house when his child was born, put it into a trust, turned it into a rental property, built it up, and it was designed where the house would be paid off by the child was 18. On the child's 18th birthday, the last payment would have been made. Now, the fact of the matter is that child at the age of 18 will inherit real estate, will inherit assets, will inherit a steady income. Likewise, if you're teaching your children from birth until adulthood how to manage a business, how to count money, how to move money around, how to do a lot of things yourself, and then also hire specialists to do things for you that you don't know how to do, and then budget your money so that when you're paying these specialists, that you're not going into the hole paying these specialists. You're able to keep your money correct, keep your money legit, and then you're able to have your money make money for you. And then your children inherit your estate. You build up the estate, you put it into a trust, and then your children inherit your estate. This is how you're able to run things. This is how you're able to have business do business for you. So truth is, no matter what you do, because you could do a tech company, you could be a construction company. In real estate is not just buying and selling houses. Real estate, you could be just a middleman. You could be a broker. But as a broker, you could broker your own deals, save money on a broker. And fact is that you can do things here and there. As a broker, you could broker somebody else's deal just because they know that you're a broker, because the law requires a middleman to be there to make sure that both sides did what they're supposed to do. So you get a cut just for making sure that the deal closes. So real estate's not just you buying a house and turning it into rental properties, but it does require real estate agents to buy houses for the people who don't know anything about real estate agents to sell houses for people who don't have time to sell houses, brokers to close a deal in the middleman situation. And this also includes the people who buy houses versus the people who sell houses. So you need at least 5 different areas of real estate that you can do around the world. And nowadays you got virtual tours, so you don't have to travel to all of the houses in real time and really walk the properties on. But you should. I recommend it. But you can buy a house without having to go there if you wanted to. And when we start talking about those tax liens, you can do enough research to find out if the building still exists there, and if it doesn't exist there, if it's a dry piece of land there, what type of flags and codes and everything else that is revolved around that particular property. You can actually buy plots of land in places and then build on a property later. You can buy the land, add the land to your overhead, do whatever maintenance that you need to do onto the land. The profits that you're making from somewhere else is offset by the debt that you're expelling on that land, but that land is collateralized. Then you can actually get you a loan somewhere else, a cash loan on a different property. And if you got you $400,000 worth of cash off of mortgaging 2 other properties, you can build on this property that once was worth nothing to someone else. Now it's got a house on it. Now you can rent that property out. And the fact that you just put 200, 300 grand into this house, building this house has 40 years worth of debt. You put tenants in there, those tenants are moving into a brand new house. They're going to get there and pay you money. If you're doing ground up constructions, you can have investors invest in your ground up construction. You can offer them percentages on the properties, which means that you turn that into a rental property, and as that property turns revenue out, all of the people that invested in the property gets money out. It's shit that you can, and you're building houses in less than a year. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 18 months, but you're building a house short term. And you're turning money off of that. Just because it's dry land doesn't mean that it's not buildable. But you also have to understand that those some people call them loan sharks, those investment capitalists, you got some of those investment corporations that will give you money towards a property. They will give you money towards a already built property. They don't usually give you money towards a ground up construction. So what you have to do when you're working around those, and I'm gonna be talking about that when we start doing the tax liens and stuff, is that if you get yourself a piece of land that is developed, meaning that accessibility to electricity, water, and sewage and stuff, you can build a house on that. And then because there's a house on that one, you can mortgage that property and use the money you got off of mortgaging that property to build a house on another piece of land. So you don't, instead of trying to get a mortgage on a piece of land, you get you some houses. You mortgage the houses and you use the cash from the houses to do the ground up construction. You own the land for the ground up construction. Once you own the land with the ground up construction, you finish building a house, then you mortgage that house, and then you do another ground up construction. And still doing buy and holds. It's just another way. So there's so many different ways. If you get yourself a 20-year plan, if you guys just really focus on your shit and get you some mentors, and don't just get one mentor, get 5, 8, 10, 20. The more people with more knowledge than you, the better. That's what I was telling you before about building up your network. You want people that know more shit than you do so that you can ask somebody else, what the fuck do I do to get to the next step? Nobody's going to give you every single detail about every little thing step by step. Nobody's going to hold you by the hand and walk you up there like a little baby. But what they will do, they will tell you some of the basic information that you need to get to the next step. And if you've already made it to a step, somebody else will come and give you the next idea to get to the next step. And 2 or 3 people might have 4 or 5 different ideas as to how you can get to the next step. And you're going to try as many of them as you can, whichever ones are the most effective or the ones that are most efficient, you're going to try those. And then the ones that are more challenging for the more experienced person, then you're going to try those once you gain more experience. And you'll be able to say, hey, yeah, I tried REITs. One of them didn't work. One of them did. I tried tax liens. I got money back on a tax lien one time, and one time I didn't. I tried the tax deeds. I went in for a tax deed, came out with interest back on a tax lien. You know, you're going to say that I went in on a real estate deal, and sometimes I sold and made, and sometimes I sold and lost, and sometimes I broke even. So it is risk. It's higher risk than a low risk investments that I was telling you guys about before. But when I was telling you guys before about the low risk, even putting your money down $200 at a time in a bunch of different bank accounts that was giving you guaranteed 5% interest no matter the market trend, 20 years of leaving your money sit somewhere with 5% interest guaranteed on the money where there's no loss there, no fees, no usage costs. When you go get that money in 20 years, you're a few $100,000 here and there, would it be millions? But you got to put it there and leave it there. You got to put it there and not need it again. Even in an emergency, you have to have a certain quantity of investment capital that's part of your 20-year plan. You want to have some emergency funds in case some bullshit hits the fan right now that you can liquidate some assets, but you want to not have that many emergencies. If you've got an emergency every year, that just needs to be part of your fucking overhead, because that stupid ass mistake that's being made on a regular basis is just part of the way that you do business, you operate, and that you just need to put money aside to do stupid shit if you're going to do stupid shit and delay your success. But if you understand that life should not be the cost of doing business where you're literally deliberately doing stupid shit because you can afford to do stupid shit, you should instead be avoiding shit that costs you unnecessary money so that you can invest your efforts in making more money, building up a positive rapport with the people around you, which is why you need to get you a better network, so that after you've built a positive rapport with the people around you, you are able to invest your positive rapport into more opportunities, which gets you more access to more resources and more capital. And you'll be able to build yourself up in ways where you would not have been able to build yourself up when nobody liked you because you were a fucking dick, because you keep doing stupid shit. Your actions and behavior can negatively impact your future in your future. And in your future, it's going to be too late, because now you just have to accept the consequences of past decisions because you did it so long ago. I'm sorry, it's not going to fix it. When you play a video game, you make certain decisions in the video game. You fail the mission, you can just do the mission over because you know the outcome. So now you're not going to make that choice. Now you're going to make a different choice. Life, you only live once, meaning that you cannot make catastrophic decisions now without recognition of how it is going to catastrophically affect you later, thinking that it's going to be all right down the line. I'll be able to deal with that later. No, you got to deal with that shit now. You got to fix that shit now. You have to adjust that shit now, because if you fix that shit now, if you put yourself in the right place now for your 20-year success, you're not sitting here, oh, well, I hope they don't catch me, I'll go to prison. No. You're saying, I hope that they find me to invest in my shit. I hope that they find my phone number, find my email, and send me a letter for an investment opportunity. Not, I'm trying to dodge the police so that they don't serve me a warrant. No. And you got to understand, when you're dealing with bouncing around from person to person and trying to, in this hookup culture where you already know that they're going to put you on child support if they can prove that the kid is yours, you're not trying to be in a situation where you got an 18-year debt with no benefit from it. You're not trying to deal with, and that's why a lot of men are avoiding marriage. You're not trying to deal with a 24-year-long debt, because she was unsatisfied with the quantity of resources that you have, and she left because she was unsatisfied with the resources that you had, and now you got to pay her for leaving. And you got to pay her twice if she's got kids for you. You guys got to start making better decisions. You guys got to start thinking about, look at Mystical. Mystical was a famous rapper. Mystical had a damn good career twice, because he was real good in the 90s. He did a 10-year stint because he did something stupid. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. Went to jail for it, got out, went back into music, went back up to he was getting back up there. And before he could go back to being known to the next generation, he went back to jail for the same shit he went to jail for the first time. For another 10-year stint. Why? You should learn from your mistakes. If you was out there having a good time and got involved with a female and went to jail for that shit the first time, you ain't trying to socialize with no females when you get out. You ain't trying to, you talking about video cameras, you talking about NDAs, you talking about contracts, you talking about like third-party witnesses that's gonna keep you from getting locked back up again. You was not trying to be in the same situation again. But see, if you don't pay attention and you don't learn from past mistakes, if you don't recognize that, learning from your homeboys' mistakes, because you don't always have to be the one to do something stupid in your group. You just have to know that somebody that you know did something stupid in your group and it negatively impacted them. And that's when you start saying, all right, I'm not going to let that shit happen to me. And likewise, I'm not going to keep paying for that stupid shit for you, which is why you have to analyze and reanalyze your network to make sure that your group is doing the things that they need to do to make sure that you're successful. Because if you're going to play Captain Saber for the homies in your group, your 20-year plan is going to be compromised. Because if you were going to be invested in yourself and you was going to be investing in your success, and then your homies is costing you money because they're doing stupid shit, you're not even investing in their success. You're not even investing in whatever it is that they're trying to do to better themselves. You're just saving them out of a pitfall. You're throwing money away to get them out of a bad spot. And I got to be honest with you. If you're not a multimillionaire, you can't go down 2, 3, 5, 7 times thinking that, oh, somebody's going to get me out. Oh, somebody's going to get me out. How many times that Kelly had to pay before he had to go in there and do some time? How much money does Diddy got? He still got 30 plus 1 years. It don't matter how much money you got. If you are out there doing stupid stuff, eventually, especially if you continue to do stupid stuff, because there are times where you might make one bad mistake and it never catch up to you. And there are times where you might make one bad mistake 40 years ago, and now you're a politician destroying your career trying to cover that shit up. And there's also a time where you just continuously make so many bad decisions to the point where you just can't become successful. And we live in a country that does not do rehabilitation. There's no such thing as a rectification, atonement, redemption. That doesn't exist. Once you get negative things on your record, you will always be identified as that. Once you get, like when they tell kids, oh, it'll go on your permanent record, it'll stick with you for the rest of the life. Truth is, there are certain shit that you can do as a minor that sticks with you as an adult. There are certain things that you can do as a young adult that will stick with you in your 60s. There are certain bad choices that you can make, certain places that you can go where you will be fucked if somebody dug a little deeper. Truth is, you can get caught up in some things. You thought you was going to go into politics. You're not going to make it. Truth is, you could do some things and you thought that you was going to make it. And nah, that roadblock from 30 years ago, stopping you from moving up in the company. You plateau working for somebody else because of the bad choices that you made growing up. You plateau. One of the things they don't tell you guys, in order to run a business for somebody else, you got to have good credit. They do a credit check on your ass to make sure that you can manage their business and not steal their money. If you got bad credit, they feel like you can't manage money. You can't manage your own money. You can't manage my money. So they're not going to hire you to manage their money because you're not going to manage their money correctly because they can't manage their own money. See how that works? So you got to make better choices. You got to do better business. Treat your life as a business. Each interaction with each individual transactionally is a business interaction where you are representing yourself as your best self all the time, not some of the time. You're not going to put on a front Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and be the most professional guy you could be. And then Thursday through Sunday, you trying to be one of the boys. You trying to be one of the thugs, because the person that you was trying to do the business deal with today might be the person that you ski masking on Thursday. The person that you ski masked last week on Friday might be the person that you doing a business with this week, Tuesday. The person you cut off in traffic last month might be the person that you're communicating with in this business deal today. You are not going to improve yourself and your envision and your 20-year plan if you don't have a 20-year plan. You're not going to improve your 20-year plan if you have your 20-year plan. If you are not making decisions for your future today, you need to be able to find ways, and it could be something small. So even if you got to work 9 to 5, you got to work for somebody else to make ends meet for right now. Do that. But think about another way to make extra money, because that extra money, that side hustle, has to be able to be converted into a business of some kind. That side hustle has to surpass your 9 to 5. That side hustle where you're not expelling so much energy, where you're not getting any sleep at all. You're putting in enough effort into that business every day till that business starts making enough money to overshadow your other businesses, so that you can now focus on the business that's making the most money where you're working for yourself. But as long as you work for somebody else, you're limited. You're limited to how much money they're willing to pay you. You're limited to how many hours a week that they're willing to allow you to work based on the amount of how much money they're willing to pay you. You're limited. And one of the other things you're limited in is longevity and success, because the day that they decide that they don't want you no more, you're fired. And the older you are when that happens, the harder it is for you to find another job. And when you do find another job, guess where you're starting at? The bottom. So if you worked at this company for 20 years and you're now making $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $40 an hour, you're making $15 an hour over minimum wage, they fire you, you go start with another job. Yeah, they might pay you $2, $3 over minimum wage, but you just lost a $5 pay cut to start over. They might put you on training for 90 days where they pay you $5 below minimum wage. If you don't show up and show out where they feel like they got to skip some steps and move you up in the company, you're still going to be getting paid shit money the first 2-3 weeks that you work. But after that first pay period, when you're out working the boss, they will move you to a position where your skills will be utilized for their benefit, not yours. As long as you're working for somebody else, they will put their aces in their places where your assets and your skill sets will benefit them. But when you start working for yourself, you will put yourself in a position where you benefit you, and you will be finding people that can do what you do better than you do what you do, so that you can put them in places to do it for you. And then you pay them what they're worth. But likewise, knowing that you're going to pay them what they're worth, you're going to be trying to pay them a little bit above market average, but you're going to be trying to keep them close to market average. Because why? You're not trying to go broke. You're not giving this person 80% of your profits because they can do it better than you. But you can give them 10 or 20% of your profits if they're doing it better than you. But you also got to remember, you can't give each person that you hire 20% of your profits, because 20% is 20%. Somewhere along the lines, you're going to have to start giving some people some by the hours. Somewhere along the lines, you're going to have to start giving some people by the job, because you have to minimize your expenses to maximize your gains. And that's one of the biggest things that big business does these days that the rest of us don't pay attention to. We hate certain jobs because, oh, they won't hire new employees. You got all this work that needs to be done. You're doing it for $2, $3 over minimum wage every day of the week. The job is hard. Well, the job is hard because you're doing it. If you stop doing it, they got to hire more people. They're not going to give you a raise because you're doing it. You're doing a job of 5 people. They're not going to pay you 2 people's worth. If you're making 15 and they give you a $2 raise, and now you're making 17 to do the job of 5 people that would have each been making 15, they're not going to give you 30 because you're doing a job of 5 people. They might give you $1 extra because you're doing the work of 5 people. They might give you $3 extra and then have you train your replacement so that if they don't like your fucking attitude, they can fire you and save $4 an hour having somebody else do the work just as good as you. So for those of you Gen Zs, you 20-year-olds that are migrating yourself into the workforce right now, you guys are fresh, you guys are new. Don't just lock mind on, I'm going to work for somebody else. I'm going to find me a quote unquote job. I'm going to find me a quote unquote career. I'm going to spend 20 years of my life in college so that I can find myself a good job when I get out of college. You need to start setting up your 20-year plan. Use your college money that you're getting from college to invest in ways to turn a profit. If you're going to draw debt from a college education, draw debt from a college education that'll turn profits after you get out of college. Don't just draw debt to get a piece of paper so that when you get out of college, you're still working for somebody else that is not in line with your degree, but you still got to pay back all that student debt. Use that debt that you get from college to make life easier for you. If you ain't making life easier for you now, you make life easier for you later. I recommend that you make life easier for you later. Because if you make life easier for you later, when you finish college, you don't have to work as hard later. It doesn't matter what happens. If you take out $200,000 worth of student loans throughout the time that you're in college, and out of that $200,000 worth of student loans, you still got $100,000 worth of money that you did not spend on your standard of living and your education, that $100,000 is going somewhere. Because every college defers the loans until you finish school. So the interest is not going to be applied to most of those loans until you finish school. And some of them actually defer the payments even if they don't defer the interest. And if you're no payments on a loan for 10 years, 15 years, and you're making interest on this loan every year, every month, when you do start paying, you're taking the interest out of the principal and paying on the loan. The principal is still in there. And until the U.S. government changes it where you stop getting a tax write-off for paying back student loans, if you're making money off of stocks and bonds and investments, and that's going towards your student loans, you're taxed up to 20% on your investments, and you're getting almost dollar for dollar on your student loans. So if 20% of your investments goes towards your student loans, you can still keep all of your investments and not have to pay taxes on them. Y'all got to start thinking about other ways to make money for you, because I mean, if you walk into a 4-year institution and they're giving you student loans every month, take them, even if you're not using them. You don't need to pay them for books and everything like that. They give it to you for room and board and everything like that. Take them, max it out every semester, max it out. And then take the money you're not spending on your education, take the money you're not spending on your standard of living, and invest that shit. Because that's the beginning. Get you some student credit cards, invest that shit, because that's the beginning. You don't waste your money maxing out those credit cards. You utilize those credit cards to get you some credit. Use that credit to go and get you qualified for higher tiers of credit. Merge all of that shit together. Have $80,000, $100,000 lines of credit, and then take that, go buy you an $80,000 house. There's other ways that you can go about doing things in life, but you guys got to have yourself a 20-year plan. If y'all don't set yourselves up with a 20-year plan at 20, you're going to be thinking about this at 40. Like, dang, Xander told me this over 2 decades ago. And you're going to be trying to get your 20-year plan at 40 so that by the time you're 62, 63, 65, you're finally successful. But remember what I keep telling y'all on the podcast, when the ladies be trying to tell us that I'm wrong, they man shame me and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But you understand that you ain't got shit until your middle ages, because you don't realize that you ain't got shit until your middle ages. And then you start getting your shit together in your middle ages. And once you've gotten your shit together already, that's when she's interested in you. So when you 40, 45, 55, 65, that's when the 25-year-old is going to, oh, hey, he's got stuff. I'll do whatever he wants. But from 18 to 40, you ain't nothing but something to do, because you ain't got shit for him. Your entertainment, your friends with benefits, fuck buddies. You're something to do. And then when they're ready to settle down, they're going to go settle down with somebody with money. And if they got children, they're settling down with the good guy that was only valued to them as a best friend. But now that they got children with the man that they wanted, now they're going to get the best friend to be the husband to take care of the kids for them. This transactional scenario that we got going on in 2024, 2025, it ain't beneficial for the men. So fellas, I'm going to tell you right now, guys, that your 20-year plan cannot be burning the candle at both ends, partying it up, living a life with the females that are not valuing you until you become valuable. Your 20-year plan should be about you becoming a valuable man, so that the only females that you waste your time on are not even wasting your time on them. The only females that you invest your time in are going to be the females that are going to benefit your agenda, where you will become better because she is there. If you ain't becoming better because she is there, bro, at the end of the day, you're going to have to wrap it up. You're going to have to wrap it up. So I got to put a pin in it today. You know, Red, I just wanted to point out, they still ain't sent the overnight fucking modem. So I got like 3-4 of them that's supposed to be in the mail. Still ain't got none of them. One of them will get here probably Monday. Because UPS and FedEx and them, if they shipping it from a warehouse, it just so happens like motherfuckers be traveling down south, and then they want to travel back up to in order to get it to a motherfucker, instead of just bringing it straight either to the east or to the west or whatever the case may be, just to drop it off. So probably get one of them on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But I know y'all don't know this, but anybody who knows anything about technology these days, they start selling phone chargers with the device a lot of the times. So your replacement device don't come with chargers. Your primary device don't always come with chargers. So you got they're literally making extra money selling the charger and the USB cord separate. So they're gonna send me all these fucking boxes with all these fucking devices in them, and I'm gonna pick the chargers out of the boxes because at least one copy of the device has to have a power cord to it so that you can plug it up, turn it on. So all the new ones, fresh out the box, taking power cords out of them. All the refurbished ones that don't come with a power cord, sending them back. But one of them motherfuckers, I'm going to hook them bitches up. And then once I get them hooked up, you're going to see that everything's going to be moving faster. We're going to be streaming a lot better. And then I'll be able to start getting more productivity done. And I'll be, like I said, maximizing. Got to focus on finding ways to make your money make money for you. And you got to focus on your 20-year plan, so that your 20-year plan at 20 will make you excessively successful at 40. So that from 40 to 70, you living a life. Because I can tell you right now, I got to touch base with a lady right now. She's 86 years old. She just got put out last week, a week and a half ago. She got thrown out of her house. After 20 years, she's been living in this apartment. She got thrown out of her house for not paying the late fees on a rundown apartment. They threw her out on the street. She spent like the first week sleeping on the sidewalk outside of her apartment because she had nowhere else to go. And you got to understand, life is not going to be easy for you, bro. They're not going to show you mercy. It's about making money. They wanted to renovate that apartment and raise the rent. They had to throw her out first. So they found a way to throw her out first. Now they're going to raise the rent. That woman should have lived and died in that house, and then they should have raised it. But it ain't about have a heart. It ain't about the kindness of. You say that when you're the one down and out. But when you're the one on top, when you feel like you got more leverage in a situation, the mindset that you always have is, fuck them. They kiss my ass. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And that's not the mentality that you're supposed to have, because the role is going to reverse. The shoe will always end up on the other foot. You will experience the other side of this situation. It might not be this week. It might not be next week. But when it happens, and you got to understand that the negative consequences when it's happening to you, you're not going to want people to tell you, oh, that's too bad, tough luck, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. You don't want them to tell you that. You want them to have a heart. You want them to show mercy. You want them to be remorseful to your position, because it's not favorable to you. But that selfishness is not going to be universal. That everybody is not generous. Everybody is not kind-hearted and giving. Some people are kind-hearted and giving because they know what it's like to suffer. Other people are just giving the money away because they don't want to pay taxes on it. But most people who are giving it away for the sake of publicity, they're not giving it away because they have a good heart. They're giving it away for the fame. It's a form of advertising. Instead of me paying an advertising firm to put my name out there, I can record myself doing something nice for a few dozen less fortunate people, and millions of people will give me an applause for doing something nice for somebody else, because most people don't do nice things. But if I'm doing it for the fame, not because the people need it, then it doesn't make me a good person because I did it. especially since I did it and you saw that I did it. So I'm only getting praise because you saw that I did it, not because I did it and you heard about it from somebody else that I did it for, and they're talking about how good I am because of how they experience it. I'm broadcasting the fact that I'm doing something good so that I can get fame out of that. That's not, the world is not about being generous to everybody. Even generous actions have selfish intent. Even positive interactions have selfish desires behind them. And since we understand that, we have to remember on a regular basis that we cannot continue to allow ourselves to be used by the environment that we're in. We have to make sure that we're maximizing our efforts across the board. Maximizing our efforts so that we have more results out of our outcome. We're maximizing our outcome by maximizing our efforts. And that doesn't mean putting in a lot more work. That means strategically putting in work where needed so that you can get the results that you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out of TikTok first. I really appreciate you guys coming to the show. And ladies, I'm going to keep telling y'all, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to have to ask you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, make it make sense. And for the rest of y'all, I really appreciate you guys coming to the show. Y'all are always showing us a lot of support. We didn't really have a lot today. Today a game day. Because I know that we're still battling through the game. We're still battling through football season. So I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, ESPN and all this other stuff, but it's all right. We still doing a good job. We still coming up. We still got a lot of people showing us love, and we really appreciate you guys that are following us and are taking the time to watch us on a daily basis, learning stuff from us bit by bit, piece by piece. It does. I see the support. I see you guys logging in on a daily basis, and I want to tell y'all every day, thank you for coming. So tomorrow's supposed to be our members only show where you guys are going to be more than welcome to show up and attend. I'm still working on the internet, but I'm still working on making sure that I get the audio files together so we can start taking some of these comments that people put out there, and we can start evaluating these comments and getting our responses out there. And we're going to make it do what it do like we always do. Either way, y'all are going to be here with me. We're going to learn something, and we're going to share. We're going to share advice and knowledge and open-minded, open-form conversations on a podcast where we're going to say things that people don't have the courage to say and talk about topics that people don't have the courage to talk about, because truth of the matter is that if we don't address a situation, common knowledge isn't common anymore because nobody's talking about it. If we don't address a situation, who will? So I really appreciate you guys coming to This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sander, and I'll see you tomorrow night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific. Have a good night.